Welcome to Straight Talk. With the end of the year in sight, it's a good time to look at the state of the economy as it affects farming here in New Zealand. How well has New Zealand really recovered from the global economic crisis? What moves are still needed? While dairying seems to be in good heart with a bullish outlook at Fonterra's recent annual meeting, the sheep and beef industries aren't so fortunate. What's their future? And the kiwi fruit industry is reeling after the discovery of PSA and nervous about just what the ramifications will be for our green and gold exports. Today I'm joined by Federated Farmers Finance and Economics spokesperson Phil York and BNZ senior economist Doug Steele. Well, Doug, how has 2010 really treated farmers?
Glenys, I think it's been a bit of a mixed bag, really. Maybe a bit of the good, a bit of the bad and a bit of the ugly. I think on the good side, maybe prices have been picking up. Some prices are actually quite good if you look at the dairy payout. On the bad side, we've had the summer drought. And obviously the spring storms were pretty nasty. And on the ugly side, well, we've had the outbreak of disease in the kiwi fruit. So a bit of a mixed bag and a bit variant between sort of sectors, if you like.
Yes. OK, what do you think, Phil? Obviously, the PSA has sort of ended the year on a pretty low note, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it certainly was a better year than the previous year. The dollar climbing at the end of the year was quite a problem. I could see as prices go up for our commodity products, the dollar's been going up. Well, that would have been fine if we'd been starting from a low base, which you normally do when you've had a period of low prices. But we started from a high point and we went to even a higher point. So that in itself was a problem with this year.
But all that really has to do with the weakening of the US currency, doesn't it, Doug?
Yeah, that's right. The Kiwi dollar it's a two-way beast. There is what's going on in New Zealand and what's going on in the other country, and clearly the US is having its own economic problems. They've been printing a lot more money. That's been putting downward pressure on the greenback. And by default, the Kiwi dollar is going high. You can sort of see that in the New Zealand dollar versus the Australian. We're actually quite low. So it does reflect what's going on globally.
Right. What about the suggestion that Winston Peters made about putting a ceiling on the level of the dollar? Is this just a crazy idea?
Well, I think most exporters would like to see the Kiwi come down. It's sort of good in theory to say, let's try to cap it. But in practice, it's extremely difficult and probably cost more than the benefits would be. We've seen the Japanese throw many millions of dollars at it, or yen at it, and it simply hasn't worked. It works for about a week, and then we're back to where we were.
Right. What's the Federation's attitude,
Phil? We still go back to, and I agree with Doug, there is some sort of, with the dollar, it is a lot of the US dollar, but at the same token, it's government expenditure is a problem. It's a supply and demand thing. If the government's borrowing the money rather than overseas, the exporters earning it, then in effect it's bringing in money that's got no sort of base on it. So in effect, it's a supply and demand. It just pushes up the price of the dollar. And as for Winston's idea, well, yeah, well, it's interesting. But I would think if you've got a ceiling, then you'd probably think we'll probably go and sit at the ceiling and stay there. It's almost be like pegging the currency, I thought. The idea maybe of having it in a band, well...
There could be some more flexibility there.
Possibly, but we've examined this every which way, and we still come back to the idea that the floating dollar is the only way we can survive.
Right, now, Doug, coming back to government spending, which the Federation is very hot on, an election year next year, are we going to see the traditional sort of spend up before the voters go to the polls?
I don't think so, actually. I think we've probably had the bulk of the spending and the tax cuts that we've had seem just come in place. Very much what we've seen from Standard & Poor's in recent days, saying that New Zealand's been put on negative watch. We have been spending too much, both government and households and business. We've been spending more than we've been earning. We need to cut that back. I think that's going to be the prevailing sort of theme that we see through 2011.
Right.
Yeah, the chickens seem to be coming home to roost on this particular one, and other countries, the UK, Germany, have been very prudent about what they've done. So
we need to follow suit.
No, I think it's time the government sort of, rather than being made to do it by continuous downgrades of the economy, then they should be positive about it and get really stuck into some serious cutting in expenditure. I can understand why they're trying to make it painless for everybody, but sometimes a little bit of pain is needed in these
You've got to take
circumstances.
that up front, right?
Yeah.
Now, Doug, moving on to the sheep and beef industries, they still seem to be struggling in relation to dairying. It doesn't seem to be the sort of cohesion there that's required. What do you think their outlook is for the year ahead?
I think the outlook price-wise is better than it's been for some time, especially lamb prices in Britain at record highs. Wool prices, for a change, are starting to go up. But on the production side, we've just seen numbers from the lambing season down 10%. That's a big hole in incomes. That's going to flow through the rural economies and be a bit of a dampener for national economic growth. I think certainly some more cohesion in the meat industry would be useful to tackle those international markets.
Right. And coming to kiwi fruit, the industry in the spotlight at the moment with the PSA outbreak, how big is the ongoing economic effect of that likely to be?
Yeah, on the kiwi fruit, it's really difficult to say because there's still so many unknowns about how the disease is physically spreading, how long it's been here and the like. So it's hard to sort of even quantify the cost today, and I see Zespri suggesting that maybe the crop could even be bigger than last year, given that the effect on vines so far has been relatively small and on only a few vines. So I think, depending on what impact there is, it's certainly going to flow through beyond the orchard and into the rural economies if it is a hit to income. It's just a bit of a wait and see.
Right. Phil, does this put the focus squarely back on biosecurity yet again? I know this is a constant call of the federations.
Well, my colleague John Hartnell from the bee industry, he's they've got a new disease it's got some unpronounceable name, and John
they
would
usually do.
John would tell you, but they'd seen there's a possibility it could have been brought in with the artificial pollen. So I think that biosecurity is a very difficult thing. You could spend your whole GDP on biosecurity and still not get 100% result. But when you actually do things that are slightly suspect and they're approved by MAF or biosecurity, and then you've got to look very closely at it. So, you don't want to end up shooting yourself in the foot.
No. Doug, do you think there's likely to be a sort of general inquiry, government-led, about exactly what has happened here with the PSA situation?
Sure, I think, there's many tests going on as far as I understand it. And, we spend about 500 million on biosecurity, and I agree with Phil, we could throw a whole lot more money at it, but I don't think money necessarily is the answer. It's about good science, about processes and procedures, and certainly there's a balance to be struck. You don't want to stop everything from coming in New Zealand because obviously the ramifications for us going the other way, we're a trading nation, and if we can't sell our products overseas, then that's clearly no good for us. So there is a balance to be struck. We just need to sort of find out where that is.
Right, okay, and the suggestion of more money possibly being needed, would that better go into greater education in terms of making New Zealanders more aware of some of these dangers that we could face?
Oh, I think New Zealanders, generally speaking, are pretty aware of the biosecurity risks and what it can mean for New Zealand as a whole, the agricultural sector in particular. And so, education, I think we're okay there. I think just the science and the process procedures, we can always learn more, and that's what we need to keep up with, I think.
Right, well, we might look for that in the future. After the break, a survey of what you farmers really think about banks and how you're treated by them. Stay with us. Welcome back to Straight Talk. Now it's on to You Said It. Comment in the ag media that's caught our attention, beginning with a new survey of farmers and banks. Now, Phil, this survey of Jeanette Walker's, it was given quite a lot of coverage on 9 to noon earlier this week. I believe you heard that broadcast.
Yeah, I listened to it, yeah.
What do you make of the survey, the findings, the whole issues thrown up?
I was a little bit concerned about the size of the respondents to the survey. I think that whatever happens, it just shows that there's a problem out there that really needs to be solved between banks and their clients. I think, as far as Jeanette was concerned, when she said how much she paid for a farm initially and put 70% equity into it, well, it certainly seemed to me that, and then got 4 years of drought in which she had to borrow money just to stay in business, not to expand or anything. And I think that in itself told a lot of things, but what it really says is that we've got to look at this on a long-term basis, and banks should be very supportive of any farmers who've got into difficulties, probably not through their own fault.
Right. Doug, there's been a lot of farmers who have been caught out by the sudden drop in capital value of their properties, and that's right across sectors. Do you think the survey was useful in terms of, cataloguing some of the specific difficulties out there farmers have?
Oh, I think it's any survey is more information, and more information is useful, certainly for the banks to take on board how the feeling is. Our agri managers are out there every day talking to farmers and trying to get the mood and help them out. And up, for that matter. I think one thing that's come out of this global financial crisis is that it has been global, and it's sort of, we can sort of point the finger overseas a little bit and say, look, the issues are over there. You've only got to look at what's going on in Ireland at the moment, and you look at the Kiwi banks at the moment. The New Zealand banks are doing okay. And helping out where we can, rolling up our sleeves and getting on with the job of trying to get farming successful.
But it does seem to be that there are a lot of farmers out there, even those who are doing well at the moment, dairy farmers, who are simply saying, look, all I'm doing is paying down debt. That is my focus. I'm not going to go out there with an expensive attitude, because I tried that a couple of years ago. The banks funded me, and it hasn't really paid off in terms of what they might have wanted.
Yeah, I think it's a partnership really, that the banks and farmers and other business and households for that matter, we're sort of finding out the new world is a little bit different to the old one, where money wasn't quite as easy and free. Certainly the good deals, if they stack up, they're still going forward. That's in everyone's interest, the banks and the farmers. Certainly cash flows in some industries are a little better than others. It is the balance sheets that are still globally as well as on farm that are still I guess the question mark. And really it's good in New Zealand's case that we actually have some sort of opportunity with reasonable commodity prices to have that option of paying off debt.
Right, OK. I know the banks are getting a bit of a drubbing over their role in what's seen as a sort of a log jam at the moment in the rural real estate market. How do you see that?
Yeah, I guess if you listen to everybody, the banks would sort of, on one hand, be lending too much, and on the other hand, not lending enough. I guess that there is a balance to be struck, and that's what we're always trying to do in everyone's interest, to try to put money into the good options and the good investments that can earn New Zealand money and push us forward up the living standard table.
Right, OK. What do you think, Phil?